Michael, we are live. How are you doing today?
I am super duper, Martin. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. An unusual setup for me. I'm on the road and I'm going to be streaming from here for the next 2 weeks, but it's going to be great.
In an unknown location,
Unknown
running
location.
from the law. It's all good, Martin. It's all good. Let's welcome everybody back to AGTP Daily. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss the most important tech stories in the United States. It's already Monday, man, the 25th of May, 2026. My goal this week is to get the day and the date right every single day and not get confused. Last week was a little bit off, but today I think we have it. I want to talk about three things today, Martin. I want to talk about Microsoft canceling their Anthropic licenses. I think this is really important. We'll get to that. I want to talk about Modal Labs. It may be a company that's a little bit under the radar, but they just raised $355 million, I believe, at a 4-point-something billion dollar valuation, so not small. And why this matters actually for the stuff that we talk about on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
And a company we haven't spent a lot of time talking to, Dell.
Yep.
I don't think about Dell in the context of artificial intelligence, but kind of like everybody else, I don't want to do the podcast before we do the podcast, but they're running an AI factory business.
Oh, wow.
And it is on fire. So we'll get to that at the end of today's show.
Super. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So why do we care? I think there's so many implications to this. As usual, let me just get through a little bit of the summary here.
Yep.
And then you feel free to jump in whenever you want, but let me just run through this. So Microsoft is reportedly winding down most of its internal Claude Code licenses and moving thousands of employees. Remember, Microsoft has like 100 and something thousand employees towards GitHub Copilot CLI, right? The command line interface, Microsoft's own agentic command line coding tool. This is interesting for me. And the reporting suggests that Claude Code actually had become quite popular inside of Microsoft. And I think we're kind of at maybe we just call this the Uber moment, where it was just getting really expensive for them internally to pay for this stuff, I think. And Microsoft is now pushing employees towards their own tool because, and here's the other thing that I think that's interesting about this, Martin, is because it wants kind of one Microsoft-shaped agentic coding interface for its own workflows, security, and engineering needs. I think they wanted to have like a Microsoft personality.
Okay.
But I think the costs also came into play too. And here's why I think so. Not the only reason why, but one of the reasons why. They're cutting this off at the end of June, on June 30th.
Okay.
Which happens to be the end of their fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would think like their fiscal year, like a lot of companies would do like January to December. Some Japanese companies do April to April. Microsoft, for some accounting reason, which I don't know, I haven't done the work on it yet, is July 1st to June 30th.
Okay. Interesting.
That's their fiscal year. I bet I'm presuming they've been doing this for a while. So they're just trying to do like a clean cut of expense minimization. Yep. That's what I think. So anyway, just a little bit more. Go ahead, sorry.
Also, like a big part of the story is that they were using the Anthropic subscription. And so then they said, then we switched to the API billing because this is what Anthropic announced like two weeks ago now, right? Like you can't use the subscription anymore as of June 15. You need to use the API and the token-based billing. And this exploded the cost for Microsoft because now they don't use the flat rate anymore. And so this is also why they said, okay, we are not going to use Anthropic anymore. Basically, now the cost is way too much. We can't continue working with you if we don't have the subscription anymore, right?
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
So this is the thing that I wanted to talk about too, right? So this is token-based economics, and it's weird, right? Because we spent so much time 3 or 4 years ago talking about tokenization of assets, right? That I don't want people to get confused when we talk about these tokens. It was confusing for me at first. I'm like, what does this have to do with Web3? And the reality is it has nothing, and I'm not joking, right? It has nothing to do with Web3. But it's like this move from flat rate pricing, which is what I pay, and frankly, what you pay for your tools, switching to sort of API usage and paying literally token by token as a cost, is just going to change the way people use this, right? Because you can burn through your budget actually way faster. We talked about this. It's completely different than SaaS. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's it. I mean, when I saw that news at first, I was like, this is exactly what we expect. This is exactly what's going to happen to everybody, because included into this subscription was way more value in terms of token of token compared to the API. Like I don't know the exact numbers, but just for the audience, just to understand that you pay, for example, $200 per month flat rate, and you get maybe like $2,000 worth of token through the API, right? So it's worth it, right? Like it's worth it. You get much more value for your money. And then Anthropic said, "Hey, look, guys, you can't do that anymore. Now you get to pay for the Anthropic. So your costs go from $200 per engineer to $2,000 per engineer." And so what we said was like, that's bad, right? As the clients, I'm not happy with that, right? And so the solution that we have as an Anthropic user is just to OpenAI, right? Like, I mean, we can just go to OpenAI. Yeah. They have the subscription. They cheap doing that. I mean, they cheap the subscription, so we can cheap paying $200 per month and use thousands of dollars of token. But Microsoft has another solution. They can build their own, like they can give their own tools to their engineers, right? So that's what they are doing here. But the root of the problem is that Anthropic said you have to stop using the subscription and you get to pay for the API. And in a way, I'm glad, because Microsoft is a big client, right? Like, so I hope this story gets millions and millions of views. I hope like millions of people get inspired to change as well. And so then and Anthropic says, okay, we go back and we keep the subscription as it is because we don't want you guys to go.
So a couple of points to make here. Like, even when we were talking today to one of the guys on ATP Insights, right? One of the guys said the tokens still remain heavily subsidized.
Yes. Okay.
But I want to get back to this topic. I know I've mentioned this before, Martin. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know the cost basis for the tokenization. And frankly, I don't know how they figure out like what it even costs for one token. I don't think anybody really knows what that means. And it brings up this question for me. It's like, why do we pay by token? Is there a better way to do this? Do you know what I mean? Is token-based pricing the only way that we can do this? Is there another way to measure compute? Or is this just the best representation of compute costs for these frontier model providers? And I don't know if we have an answer, but I want to ask the question because I want to get a better understanding of, do you know what I mean? Like even when you're using a SaaS program, you're still using compute. It's out there in the cloud. Now, I understand that it's not agentic AI, so you're not like constantly iterating and constantly doing stuff.
Yeah.
But like, haven't we reached the point where the compute that we have and the throughput that we have, like, I feel like I put way more stuff through my gigabit Ethernet without taxing my system at all. But I feel like I could push it all the way to the limit, and it's not going to cost me any more money, and my internet provider is not going to charge me any more money just because I'm like streaming video all day, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, the number one explanation would be you have a frontier model. You explain that every time you do a request to us, we have to process it. We have computing cost, and you need to bear the cost with us, basically, right? So I think this is one way to look at it, like just to process that the inference part, right, is actually using a lot of compute, and they need to and they have a lot of cost, so that's why they need to charge on a per token basis. The other way to look at that is that maybe that's not completely true, right? And maybe actually the compute is either going to get super cheap or is just not optimized at all, and is going to change at some point. And so then we can go back to like a subscription model where that includes a certain amount of usage, and if you want to get more usage, you just pay a higher tier of a subscription, basically, right? Like,
what I mean, can't they measure? Look, you do this all the time, right? When we're using OBS, you measure like how much of the CPU is actually getting used by any particular process. So can't they do sort of not CPU, but like CPU or GPU monitoring, so they can get a better understanding of exactly what the compute costs are? So, and I don't want to say throttle it back in real time, because that's bad, right? Particularly if you're doing something that takes a lot of iterations and performance stuff. But still, there's got to be a better way to do this. And here's the other thing that's really important. So again, a lot of people may not know this, but GitHub is owned by Microsoft, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
all the Copilot stuff that they do that has a GitHub kind of label on it, and the CLI stuff we were talking about before, is a Microsoft internal product, yeah?
Yes.
At some level. But apparently, GitHub is moving Copilot to usage-based billing from June, so from June as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the reason why they're giving this is because they say escalating inference costs made the prior model unsustainable, which sounds kind of like what Anthropic is saying. But then I guess my question is, okay, but does that then mean that Microsoft still has costs associated with it because they're using more of their own compute? Like, where, do you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference between paying Anthropic for the costs or having to build more servers, more data centers, more GPUs and CPUs?
Maybe they have a
Because if
capacity.
they're going to build them, say that again.
Sorry, maybe they have a capacity, just like HCI. They have no users, ton of excess capacity. So maybe that's the same thing for Microsoft. They have ton of them, and they
They
bet on
do, they
themselves.
do. But if they end up in a position where other people are, because GitHub is still something that people use all
Yes,
the time,
it's
right?
big, yeah, it's big.
And GitHub, what is GitHub? It's a place where people store, share, save,
Mm-hmm.
reuse all this code. So it's the
Yeah,
perfect place to run agentic coding, right? That's why the CLI there is probably very popular. And if it's as popular as they want it to be, well, then they're going to end up in the same. It just feels like they're going to end up in the same place. It's like a different kind of money that's being spent. And to be fair, and I've said this before, I kind of feel like token money is funny money in a way, right? Because no one can like, I know when I order a pizza, like I could like go all the way back and see what the cheese costs, what the pepperoni costs, what the dough costs, what the hourly wage is for the guy or the gal that's making the pizza, and just like how much it costs to light the oven up all day. Like I know what the input costs are, and that's why I can say like, okay, that pizza is 685 baht.
yeah.
If I want a 30% profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get to a place where people actually understand like what the tokenization model is and what it actually costs. Because I feel like this, Martin, too. And again, tell me where I'm wrong.
Tell me.
In almost, because I'm trying to think about this in real time, but in almost all cases, subscription models are built even at the $200 level because they feel like I'm going to pay $200, but I'm not going to use all of the compute or the
Exactly.
tokens that are associated with it.
Yep.
But you're going to pay $200. If it's just you and me,
Yeah.
you're going to use all of it
Yeah.
or more because you're running agents 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am not, right? So I'm subsidizing you.
Yes.
But isn't that the way every kind of model works? Like I have to believe that people that are using Salesforce and SaaS and all these other SaaS companies, like they're super power users that are using way more compute than the guy who's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just have an ERP system running here and I use it like once a month.
No, exactly. Exactly. I think this is exactly the type of situation that we are in at the moment, basically. Yeah, we need to get to the point where we go all subscription. That would be ideal for sure, right?
For us, for sure, right?
But like also for companies like Microsoft, right? I think it's actually very
Yeah.
interesting that this headline is actually Microsoft that says that type of thing, right? Because I thought it would be like more like the smaller companies, like not like the
Yeah.
massive corporation like Anthropic Media, but like the smaller than that, who would be
Right.
complaining about the laws. Because I thought the big companies were paying for the API already, and they were very happy with that basically. But it's not the case, right? Like this story tells us that's not the case. Even in the large enterprises, they were using the subscription, they were happy with that, and now they want to now they want to switch. So I hope it just doesn't, from Anthropic point of view, I hope they don't understand that as the way Microsoft justifying stopping Anthropic and then using Copilot, or just because Anthropic is getting too expensive. I hope they understand this as a signal that says you are losing clients, right? And this is bad to lose this plan, and so
Right.
you need to keep doing the thing that you were doing a month ago and OpenAI is still doing right now, right? So
Can I bring up another topic here though that's
tell me.
associated with this? Because the more I think about it, the more I think if it's funny money, and again, that's me talking. You don't have to agree with me here.
Okay.
But if it's just like I pay here or I pay there, that's fine. But do you think that there may be a more strategic reason why they're doing this? If you think about it, right? So they roll out Claude Code to all their employees. Microsoft is filled with unbelievable engineers. Like whether we like it or not, it feels like an old-fashioned company because it's been around since 1975. But it's still filled with a bunch of really high-quality engineers, right?
Yep.
Maybe they give them access to it internally. They do a whole bunch of testing on it for 6 months. They pay whatever they want to pay, but they also have their own tool. And could it be that maybe they're just like, maybe the cost doesn't matter so much to them,
Yeah.
but the strategic benefit of mucking around with this for 6 months or however long it was. Yeah, I think it's 6 months. I think it was from December 2025 until June 30th, right?
Okay.
And then maybe learning from what was there and then building some of that stuff into their own CLI, which then they can sell to other people. And since they're also moving to usage-based pricing, maybe they're trying to think like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
Why are we promoting the fact that we're using Claude Code when we should have everybody using Copilot, which is kind of bad Microsoft? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe there's a strategic reason why, not so much just a cost reason.
Yeah, that would definitely be Martin, and that would be super smart for that, right? Like if like you're right. Like if you want to promote your own Copilot, that's the best way to do that, right? Like if you want to promote your own thing and you want to promote it in a way saying that it's actually cheaper than Anthropic, perfect, right? Like this is exactly what you should do. But when you think about it, like, I think GitHub very early on, very early on in the age of AI, very quickly they had code completion, like really quickly. If I remember correctly, you could like put your code on GitHub and then you could complete it using AI. I think they were working with OpenAI for that at the beginning, and then Cursor completely like exploded. So my point here is that was one massive missed opportunity for GitHub, because I think they were doing it first, if I'm not wrong.
Right. Go ahead.
And so that's the first thing. And then Microsoft Copilots, like, we use that really, right? Like there's so much potential because it's built inside the OS itself, right? So you have so much potential, but there's no integration with anything else. The AI itself is pretty bad. And all the agentic coding that happened in the last 6 months, all the agentic integration with computers, with apps, and with all of these things, it looks like Microsoft Copilot was completely left out of the discussion, right? I have a PC, so I have Copilot. I have no idea what it does, like where to use it,
right?
How I can use it to do something. But I know very well how Claude Code can help me do all of these things, and how Codex can help me do all of these things. So my hunch here is that Copilot is actually can't do the same thing, right? And so that's another second missed opportunity for Microsoft in like the last 2 years, basically.
Yeah, and Microsoft has had a lot of kind of missed opportunities.
Yeah. And so now
in the AI space,
in the AI space, it looks like these two products, I think they could do it. Like they could have built the orchestrator, the integration with the OS, and all of these things, and they also had code completion, but they did not win, right? And they just other people did a much better job than them. So maybe it's also like a way for them to try to get back in the race, right? And say, okay, you are right. Like, we just want to promote our own thing. We want to promote our own product, and we want to stop using other people's product to try to get clients for us. Yeah.
And there's something else here, Martin, that's going on. It feels to me almost like the other coding, like these other AI coding startups, and it's hard to call them startups, right? Like Cursor already has like billions of dollars of business and they've raised a ton of money. So to call it a startup doesn't feel like what we used to call a startup like 5 or 7 years ago, right?
Yes.
But if you think about it, XAI, we talked about this a couple of days ago, right? So SpaceX XAI has an option to buy Cursor at $60 billion, to pay $60 billion for them, right?
Yes.
Microsoft now stopping to use Anthropic. and just using their own sort of Copilot, CLI, GitHub tools. Google has Gemini, and XAI is basically saying they're not giving up on their models, but they're focused more on the not code completion, but the AI coding stuff and their data centers.
Mhm.
But what does it mean? Because this is the other thing that's interesting, right? What does it mean for other companies that are in the AI coding space if all of these big companies now are saying we're just going to use our own stuff?
Mhm, mhm.
And if we have what's the word, relationships with other big institutions, and Microsoft does for sure, right? You mentioned this. If you think about like every big corporation uses Microsoft Windows for better or for worse.
For sure. But also like
They just do, right? So the Copilot stuff is going to be built in there, and I can see again, although this is not corroborated, right? Because the conversation we had a couple of days ago where like people were saying internally, yeah, we can use this, we can use that, we can use Anthropic, we can use whatever we want, which was weird to me because I never saw that when I was working in a big company. But it's hard to get over the hegemony of Microsoft Windows and Microsoft Office.
yes.
And if that's where Copilot is residing, maybe at some point just inertia
Mhm, mhm.
is just going to get people to use Copilot because it's there, if that
But
makes sense. And for those companies, sorry, just let me just finish the thought. For those companies that are using Google Workspace,
Mhm.
Gemini is there, but we have that, right? But we don't really use it that much, do we?
So that's exactly what I wanted to say. Like you will use Copilot or Gemini if they are good, and the problem is they are bad. Like Claude and OpenAI, they are way better at doing stuff for you. I mean, they are way better when it comes to software development, to coding, into agentic task, right? So
Yeah.
that's why they seems to be winning, because just Gemini and Copilot, they just can't do that. They're just not as good as Claude and GPT 5.5. So when you're on enterprise, like what do you do? Do you, like, for example, on the media, do you keep using Gemini, or do you pay for the better stuff that can help you grow much faster, right? So
Yeah, it's weird because we pay
yeah,
for OpenAI and we pay for Anthropic.
yeah, and also for Gemini, we also have access to Gemini, but Gemini does nothing for us because, and I tried. It's not like I assume it's bad and I didn't even try. No. I've tried because once again we already pay for it. I was like, great, we don't have any extra cost, perfect. But
Yeah.
it's just not as good as Claude. That's just a fact. Like we wouldn't have been able to build all the things that we have right now as of today with Gemini. So that would be really, really stupid to just stuck there, when we can just like spend a little bit more and get access to the best tools on the market.
Do you think so? Because I don't even have an opinion on Gemini because I wouldn't even know. Like I'm looking at my browser, right? Because I use Chrome as my main browser, and up in the right hand corner there's a little button that says like Ask Gemini, and I'm like,
You're right. Have you ever
I'm
tried?
not pressing that button. Do you know what I mean? It's weird.
Have you ever tried?
I don't have an opinion on it at all. I don't know why.
So maybe they are good for some stuff, right? Like what we talk about is a lot about the tech side, the software development, sorry, the tools for developers, like all of these things, right? That are really, really complicated to do and are at the moment completely changing, right? Thanks to AI, and like thanks to the new capacity that AI brings to the table. But yeah, outside of that, like for example, I think we use Gemini almost every day in Google search, because if you search for something, then the little summary on the top of the page is Gemini, and that works well. This is good, right? Like if you type who win the last UFC, you will have the answer directly into Google, and that's great. That's a great use case for Gemini. But it's not a use case that we need to do often enough to integrate that into our workflow. It's not like an agentic use case that we need to do. So that's why we still need to pay for the frontier model that are better than just summarizing Google search result, basically.
Do we want to spend any time talking about like who actually makes money here over time? I just feel like no, because a lot of the, do you know what I mean? Like I feel like at some level, and there were a little hint of this today in some of the stuff we were doing on ATP Insights as well, where there's some feeling of like the models feel more like they're getting more and more generic and more commoditized. But the services around the models are the ones where people are starting to make the money.
Yeah, I mean, today, if you help companies adopt AI, for example, that's super great, right? Or if you use AI yourself and it helps your company to get much better, then it means that you are going to use other services. You will have more needs, like for example, cloud computing, right? Feels like the most obvious extra service that you are going to buy after implementing AI.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think at some point, because Microsoft, again, I'm just thinking about this because we were talking about Microsoft getting rid of Anthropic, but Microsoft also runs a gigantic Azure business, and obviously they
Yes.
run GitHub as well.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to get to a point where Anthropic is going to have to run a cloud business as well? Do you know what I mean? Because like the cloud business, at least for Microsoft, is like the Azure business is directly related to what they do in Copilot and GitHub. That all the storage, all the files that are there, they're easily accessible and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't have to go anywhere to go from anything you have on Azure, and I'm sure it's optimized for that. And I hadn't thought about it before, but I wonder if it makes sense for, not even makes sense, but like if they're thinking about, you know what I mean? A company like OpenAI is offering cloud services. And I wonder like how much more data center space they're going to need to do that. I don't know if there's an answer to that question, but it's just something that I was thinking about because that's real value too. It's just another way they can make money. Sorry, go ahead.
I think this is the same thing that we kind of speak about all the time, which is if you can do the model plus the infrastructure, your chance to win in 10 years is just so much higher, right? That's why, to me, companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, they have a huge edge, right? They are like, once again, that if I need to put my money in who's going to be the top 5 companies in the world in 5 years or in 10 years, the one doing both the model and also the infrastructure have a massive edge, right? So that's why, like, if you're Anthropic or you OpenAI, currently you just do the model, right? And plus, most of your shares are actually owned by the hyperscaler, right? Like by the AWS, by the Microsoft, by the Google. So I don't think they actually can because their stakeholders actually do that their business. So why would they let you compete with them? So that's why, like, I think the answer to that, like, my first feeling is no. Anthropic and OpenAI are not going to launch a cloud offering, but their stakeholders, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, are going to benefit greatly from already having a cloud business.
Okay, well then I have another controversial question for us and for the audience as well.
Let's go. Let us know what you
I was just looking this up.
Yeah.
Say it again.
I'm just saying to the chat, let us know what you think.
I'm really curious about what people think about the next thing I'm going to say.
Tell me.
Amazon's valuation is almost $3 trillion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot higher. Not a lot higher, but it's higher than I thought. I thought it was going to be like a trill. But it's $2.93 trillion of enterprise value. Okay, and it's got a trailing PE ratio of 31.6. It's not insane.
Okay.
But could they buy OpenAI? Do you know what I mean? Like we talk about this all the time.
Completely.
Amazon AWS already has a whole bunch of stuff that OpenAI would want to build. This is what made me think about it, the cloud stuff, right? And Amazon would love to have access or unique access or only access just to the stuff that OpenAI has, right? Through ChatGPT and everything else that they've built. Amazon doesn't have like a coding thing. They don't have Codex. They could also buy Anthropic. Like they could have bought it yesterday at much cheaper. They could have bought it for $380-something billion.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if that's something they're thinking about because we always see this kind of consolidation. And are companies like Anthropic or OpenAI valid standalone businesses? Because I don't see a situation where OpenAI would buy Amazon. That's not possible.
No, it's possible. Once again, like plus,
it doesn't make any sense because they've got this whole retail business that's like useless for OpenAI per se.
Yeah.
But you could add the OpenAI business into AWS and have like a really strong, powerful business. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, that's pretty much what already happens. Huh? Like look at all the money that that the hyperscalers have put into both of these companies, right? Like
that's the point, though, right?
Yeah,
but how much do they already own? So in other words, they wouldn't even have to buy the whole thing because they already own chunks of it.
I think it's like what, like I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I think it's like 46% of Anthropic is owned by Amazon And is it Microsoft or is it Google? I don't remember. But
Microsoft,
so Microsoft, like if they already have
I think.
46% of it, right? So you're right. Like if you, I mean, I feel actually most of the money will go to their competitor. Like if
Right,
AWS
exactly.
wants to buy Anthropic, they will need to pay
They have to pay
Microsoft, Google,
Microsoft.
and they are going to they are going to buy them out. So in a way, it's kinda already happening, and so that's why I think to your first question, I think OpenAI and Anthropic they can't go back to the cloud business because they are already owned by the cloud providers to some extent,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So it's already happening. I think it's already happening, and yeah, I think what we see today, which is the guys who do the models plus the infrastructure may be really big winners in the AI race. That's what Microsoft and AWS and Google and Meta saw 5 years ago, and so that's why they were the one putting so much money into the model company themselves, right? And it
Yeah.
was less Nvidia or less the other type of tech companies like Apple, for example, right? Like they didn't really participate into that because it feels to me like it's a business for the cloud provider, and it's already happening. It's already there.
It feels like a slow moving coup.
Yeah, exactly. That's a slow moving go. That's really good. They are going to take over slowly at some point.
Can we just say one more thing about this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was all this talk with before like a week or so ago, there was all this talk about Sam Altman like being in trouble and people piling on and all this other stuff, right? We spent
Yeah,
a lot of time talking about it because the market spent a lot of time talking about it.
yeah,
I feel like in the last week, it's kind of quieted down a little
yeah,
bit,
yeah, yeah.
but at
Since
some level,
trial,
it feels, say again, yeah, since the trial, right?
yeah, since the trial ended, yeah.
But at some level, it feels like Microsoft or whomever
Mm,
or Amazon or AWS is just kind of better placed to run that business in a way that has less conflict, maybe more benefit to its end users. And to be fair, they're way better. Remember, AWS Cloud, right,
mm,
is priced on a subscription model. And
yeah,
those, you know, yeah, sure. If you need another S3, they're going to charge you for another machine, but it's not like how much you use the machine. You can
no,
use that machine as much as you want
mm,
until you have to scale it up to another one.
mm.
So maybe they'll actually be better at pricing the use of these big frontier models than the models themselves are.
Yeah,
I don't know, but you know what I mean? Because I'm really stuck on this idea of is the token cost model the only way to actually run this?
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's true. And maybe like the Frontier Model Lab, they are just the innovators. They are the guys with all the ideas,
Mm,
right? And so this is true at first. You really want the guys with all the ideas, and you want to let them work, right? Like you want to let them
yeah,
innovate and try and create something new. But maybe yeah, maybe when we are going to see innovation slow down, and more like established type of products, then maybe it would be time to actually bring on real experienced business people who know how to structure a
right.
company properly, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised that maybe in 3 years, in 5 years, in 1 year, maybe let's see like how like what's the pace will be. But I don't know, like a former executive or someone very very highly ranked at AWS, for example, become the CEO of OpenAI or the CEO of Anthropic, right? Because innovation is done, and now we need to structure the business and we need to integrate it properly, right? And so
Yeah,
now we need
I
like an operator.
it wouldn't again. It would not
Mm,
surprise me. The more I think about this, the more I believe that it wouldn't surprise me if one of these big hyperscalers, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft or even Google,
yeah,
bought one of these model companies and just folded it into the stuff that they were already doing if they had it. So like Google would fold it into Gemini, Microsoft would fold it into Copilot or whatever, and Amazon would just use it as is because they're not building their own models in the same way.
yeah, yeah.
It just wouldn't surprise me.
It would be huge risk, I think, to do it today because you still don't know if Anthropic or OpenAI are going to be the best, and you don't know as well what are the Chinese going to be able to do once they have their own chips and when all
Yeah.
of this happens, right? So you can't really bet on who's going to be the winner in 5 years on the
No.
model size. model side. So it would be like a massive, massive bet. So I think I think the slow coup is actually exactly what's happening here, right? Like they have their chip, they bought some shares, so they are here. They put more and more, slowly but surely, until
They just
maybe
own it over time. They're
yeah.
just like, sorry guys, you're out. We're in.
And at some point, one that they will understand better what the market look like. Once they will know better who the winner will be. Maybe this is going to be time to acquire the winner, right? So it could be OpenAI, it could be Anthropic, it could be the Chinese, or maybe like there's always this possibility that we can run local models on our local computers at some point, right? Today we don't do it because it's so expensive, but if the price of the gears actually comes down, this is going to create like a whole new set of competitors for OpenAI and for Anthropic, right? So yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the next 5 years, 10 years of who is going, like actually how we are going to use AI. There's a huge uncertainty, but what's sure is that if you want to use it in the cloud, you will need to buy a server, and so you will need data centers.
So before we move on to talking about Modal, because I actually think this is important as well. It's a different scale, but I do think it's important because it's related in a way to everything that we've been discussing. There is precedent, though, Martin, for big companies like Microsoft, even Facebook. We've kind of left out of this conversation. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
No. Actually,
right? If Facebook went out and bought one of these big model companies, but the bottom line is that, think about it. Facebook went out and spent a ton of money back in the day on Oculus.
Yeah.
And kind of for nothing in a way, right? But back then when they bought it for $1 billion or $2 billion, that was a lot of money.
Yep.
And it was just like, wasn't even a bump in the road in their earnings.
Yes.
But so my point is that like, even if they can't define or understand who the winner's going to be, if they dropped $500 billion or $750 billion on buying one of these frontier model companies, and it just didn't work out,
okay. You think that's
I don't think it would matter.
Okay, that's next level bet. Next level bet. Let's put $500 billion on this bet.
Okay. I know it sounds weird, but like, and the conversation in Modal is going to seem like really small in the context because they raised $355 million at a $4.65 billion valuation. I want to get to that. But the point is that like, OpenAI did say they're going to spend in the next 5 years $600 billion.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And that's not a bump in the road for them. So like if Amazon spends $600 or $700 billion acquiring them and just paid it off over the next 5 or 6 years, like why is that different? Is the way I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And plus that we already own like a big part of that, right? So which means like
yes, they wouldn't even have to pay the full thing as you've mentioned. You're right there.
They don't need to pay the full thing. They can pay it over a few years. I think maybe the only reason why they wouldn't do it is they just don't know who's gonna be the winner. There's so much uncertainty. But does it really matter? Like, is it a problem? Are they ready to actually do these bets, right, and take the risk? Maybe, right? That would be, and that would not be that crazy, right? Like you're right. If one of the hyperscaler buys one of the model company, it wouldn't be that crazy. It would make a ton of sense. Yep.
It just wouldn't shock me at all. And I think in the same way, and let's move on after this, but I think in the same way that if I had told you that Apple was going to be the first $1 trillion company 10 years ago, you would have said I was insane. And now like everybody's $1 trillion company. So it's just the way the numbers work, actually, just keep getting bigger and bigger. And as always, there's just way too much money sloshing around the system. Okay, let's talk about Modal. Is that cool?
Let's do it. Let's.
So, do you know what Modal Labs does? Just by the way.
I don't. That's why I'm listening to this.
It's okay. Let's explain this to people. Let me just run through this really quickly. So Modal Labs did a $355 million Series C. I want to say again, Martin, that Series C in the old quaint days of like the startup world would have been like $70 million, and people would have freaked out like, wow, that's a big number. They did their Series C, $355 million at almost a $5 billion valuation. And I think part of the reason why this is so important is because what does Modal do? So Modal provides a serverless cloud platform that makes it easy for developers to run, train, and deploy AI models and heavy computing jobs without worrying about the back end infrastructure. It's essentially a cloud services company just for AI, like purpose built just for AI. So companies like Cursor, Claude Code, Rep, like all these companies are super happy to do all their back end testing. You're looking at it right now on Modal, right? And again, let's just to give some numbers. Modal's annualized revenue reportedly jumped from about $60 million in the fourth quarter of last year to about $300 million now, right? So it went up 5 times, and its valuation lagged a little bit, but not much, from $1.1 billion in the same time frame to 4.65. So it's almost moving in a 1-to-1 sort of delta with its revenue. And the idea here is that AI coding tools create more code, more experiments, and more agentic actions and more tests. And Modal is positioned as this like serverless execution and GPU infrastructure layer for that workflow. They're specifically built just to handle all this stuff. It's like almost like the Modal sandboxes, which is one of the things that they call it. It's just an execution layer for these coding agents. And that's why it's actually really important.
I mean, that makes total sense, right? We see that everybody needs more compute, needs more data centers, and this is exactly what you provide. Then I mean, this is going to be a great business, huh? Can we be part
and this is all. Say again.
Can we be part of a Series D? Because I think it's
so this is what I was going to ask. I want to get the CFO of Undercover Media on the phone and see if he was paying attention to the Series B and wonder why Undercover Media did not invest in the Series C. But we can have that conversation offline.
We need to talk to the CFO and ask why we were not involved.
Why we were left out of it. But again, you know, I did say this when I was giving sort of the details of what was going on with Modal, and I think it's important to note this, right? Like that's still a pretty big Series C.
Yes.
Even in today's day and age, because they themselves are not like the model company. They're not like an AI company per se. They're the back end infrastructure that runs this. But the reason why you have to ask, sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, yes. Sorry to interrupt you, but do they have their own data centers or do they use AWS, Microsoft, and most of these guys? I don't think they build their own data centers. So I think they are the layer that help you connect to the data centers in an AI native way, basically. So
that's the point, though, right?
Yeah. So which means like when you go to the AWS console and you want to use the AWS product, it's still the old way of doing it, and so it's not optimized for AI. I think what they're doing here is that they are optimizing the resources of the hyperscalers to actually be used for AI use cases. So
exactly.
I think they are more like a software type of thing, right? That where they actually like help you navigate the product in a much more efficient way. And this is really cool. This is really cool.
Because so they use use Oracle Cloud.
Okay, Oracle Cloud. Yeah,
mostly.
Okay. So
right.
Oracle is Oracle one of the investors?
It's a good question. I mean, I can find out, right? Is Oracle an investor in
Modal? Because if they are not, that
would be silly, right?
That would be silly, first of all. But second of all, that would be something that one of the hyperscalers could be interested to buy very quickly, really quickly.
Well, again, because it's a software layer, it's a specific software layer purposely built just to run these inference and AI testing jobs.
Yes.
Right. And you can imagine a case where, I mean, at $4 billion, it's just like money in the couch kind of money for these hyperscalers.
And it's just going to grow. Like if they found a better way to organize your AWS resources, or in this case, your Oracle resources, right? Because what Oracle has built is not AI native, and they have a better way to do that. Then you want to buy the software, you want to own the stack, right? Like if you are Oracle itself, you want to have the access to your own services by yourself, basically, and then deploy that to all of your clients, and not only to the clients of Modal, right? So I
yeah.
think if they really found a way of something that really, really works and they have a lot of clients and this type of fundraise proves it, I think we are going to see them acquired really quickly, like really, really quickly.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting because the way the market is starting to value companies like Modal, right, that are, as you said, providing this software layer that optimizes the ability for AI companies to do both testing,
Yeah,
to do AI generated coding in an environment that's safe
yeah,
and well
training.
understood, but also to do inference compute and help make that inference compute like more efficient.
Yeah,
Um, in a way, they're being valued almost not like a software company, but more like an infrastructure company.
yes,
And I think that that's why it's because again, just like everybody else, they're switching to this not just like a SaaS model, but like a usage volume model. How much of Modal are you using, and then how much can we charge you to use that? Right? A normal like a dev tool normal model for that kind of business would just be like, okay, you have 15 people using it, you pay for 15 people to use it. Just traditional SaaS. But what's
yes.
happening here is how much action do they have on the platform, and then they're charging in the same way. It's not for tokens per se,
Mm-hmm.
but they're figuring out a way to charge people for compute in a way that SaaS companies had not done before. Yeah.
Maybe it's actually exactly the same way that SaaS companies have done before, because like when you think about, let's take Shopify as an example. Maybe what they do is
Okay.
really similar to what Shopify does. Shopify, they have a software that runs on AWS, and AWS
Yep.
charge them for compute. Okay, and then what Shopify does is that they charge the end user something to be profitable based on what Amazon charge them as well, right? So
Yeah.
and in the middle they had the extra value of building the software to access AWS infrastructure, right? Because if you build your own e-commerce website, you first of all have to build your own e-commerce website by yourself, but then you also need to host it by yourself on AWS, which is super hard. So when you go to Shopify, you get both, right? And then it's inside the price. When Shopify charge you $29, $50, $100 per month, you pay both for the infrastructure and for the software as well. And so I think here, to me, it's kind of look like it's exactly the same. Like they have figured out a way
It's a really good point.
to actually say, look, we pay AWS that price. We had our fee for the software, and then we charge you this price to access both the software plus the hardware as well, in a super easy way. So you don't need to deal with all of these guys by yourself. We do it ourselves, right? And so this makes accessing the cloud provider super easy, and also optimized for AI, which is exactly what we need right now, basically.
So you make a really interesting point. If Shopify is to Modal,
Yeah,
right, the same way, and they're both like essentially reselling AWS
that's
or whatever the backend. In Modal's case, they're reselling Oracle Cloud infrastructure, right?
yeah,
But essentially, they're saying you don't want to run your own stuff on Oracle Cloud because it's too complicated and too confusing. And we built the software that allows you to run it in an environment that's safe and efficient. And I made a note to myself while you were talking, like, could you imagine running your e-commerce website directly on AWS? Like, what a nightmare that would be.
you will need your own team. Like this is a completely different story now, because an e-commerce website
Yeah.
is a tech business. Like if you run it by yourself, and that's the value of that platform. Like Shopify brings to the table, right? Like Wix, Squarespace, like all of these guys, they tell you you don't need to have your team to be able to run your e-commerce website, right? And so I think this is
Right.
what Model is doing here. They have
Exactly.
the external CTO, if you want, right? Like you don't need to have a dedicated AI CTO in your stack, because this is really hard. We are just going to do that for you, right? And this is what Shopify does. So actually, like the one thing that we said about Shopify was a massive mistake they made was to never build their own data centers, right?
Yeah.
Because now they
Yeah.
can't really participate in the AI race, like as crazy as that sounds, but they just can't participate. So let's see what Model does, right? But maybe the next move is actually to build their own infrastructure, buy their own chips, start building their own racks, build their own data centers, and now they're gonna become an hyperscaler, taking the software roots, which would be really, really interesting. And
But so this brings up this other topic we've been discussing, Martin, now for like a month or so, maybe even more. Everybody wants to build a data center.
yeah, exactly.
And nobody wants to have a data center like within 5 miles of their house.
So how do we do?
So I'm serious. So like,
Yeah.
I was listening to something else today, and it's like in Japan, in Singapore, in Indonesia, in the United States, in small towns everywhere, people are just like, data centers, no way.
Yeah.
But we need them to run this. Do you know what I mean? We need them to run the stuff that we're doing it. And we didn't talk about this either, but like, maybe we did mention this yesterday or the day before, but like Eric Schmidt, right, who was the former CEO, the original CEO of Google,
Yeah.
was like booed at one of these commencement speeches. We did talk about this, right? Because Gen Z and millennials are just like anti-AI all the way, and I can't see them. Like, you're right, Shopify should have their own data centers.
Yep.
And you know that like OpenAI and Anthropic are building their own data centers. NVIDIA wants to have their own full stack data centers. Amazon, AWS already has them. Microsoft runs Azure. Google runs Google Cloud. Alibaba also has its own data centers. I feel like everybody and their brother is going to build like another 100 data centers.
Yeah.
Where are they all going to go? Do you know what I mean? And don't say space.
Space, matter, water, or to a welcoming country that is happy to get them, right? Yeah, maybe in Europe that would be funny if they start building data centers in Europe instead of building them in the US, but all the data centers are owned by American companies. That would
Never
be
going to
horrible.
work. Never going to work, because the data sovereignty stuff is going to be
Yeah.
really important, right? So everyone's going to want to have the data centers around the country. But I can't imagine, like, even in South Korea, there's enough room for data centers. Maybe that's what they do to merge South Korea with back to North Korea. They'd be like, we'll just put 1,000 data centers in North Korea and everybody can then eat. How does that sound to you guys?
Maybe that's how they're gonna be friends again.
I guess that's not politically correct, but why do I care? Have you seen the recent performance of the Shopify stock? I was just looking at it.
Is it
Since November, it's down drastically.
Is it still bad? Yeah, it's crazy.
But I think you make a really good point. They missed an opportunity
Massive.
to build their own data centers. Now they're just completely reliant on, I presume it's AWS.
So yeah. They use AWS and Cloudflare as their CDN. So this is massive cost, right? Like, this infrastructure are just massive cost. But my feeling is that they didn't miss an opportunity. I think they were never big enough to actually do it. I think Shopify at the end of the day is a pretty small business, and this is why the stock is falling so much. Is because now you had your chance, basically, right? Like, you had your chance. Like basically before, I think the price was so high because there was a part of it what was hope. We are pricing the future, right? We're like, okay, Shopify has a lot of potential. We can get bigger and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I think now we just lost faith in them. Now we're just like, you know what? Actually, you are not going to get bigger. You had your chance, and that's not the case. So now we just go back to a normal price of what you are really worth, without the hope factor and future potential growth. I think that's what's happening with Shopify, because the fact that they are not participating at all in the AI race tells a lot about their business. So hopefully Modal doesn't have the same problem. It looks like they are doing great. So yeah, either they can be bought by one of the hyperscalers, who just include them as an easy way to access their own infrastructure, which would be super smart, or they start building their own data centers, and then that's going to be a completely different story. But they will need to raise way more money if they want to do it.
Way more, because I don't think they can afford to build this stuff without raising more money. I want to make one more point, and then I want to talk about Dell a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Did you hear what that guy said today about e-commerce in Asia moving to like 50% or more of retail sales?
So I think either he didn't understand the question or I didn't understand the answer. But what you asked was, do you see a world where the share of e-commerce can increase a lot, right? Which is what we speak about all the time, right? Like e-commerce today is only 20% of retail. And what he
Right.
answered was there is already brands in China that do 80% e-commerce. So that's not your question. Like
No, that was not my question at
yeah,
all.
what he said was some brands already sell more than 80% through the e-commerce channel. But what you said was in total of retail, including all the brands, e-commerce is only much smaller than that. And do you believe it's going to increase?
Right.
So I don't know if you were speaking about the same thing. That's my
Right.
point.
I don't think, yeah, I think he misunderstood the question
Yeah,
because it's only 16.9% of retail sales in the United States. And I think that's the
exactly.
bellwether. I don't think it's going to be higher here.
No.
Yeah. Maybe we were just talking past each other. Okay. Fair
But
enough.
but yeah, I think but also like 16.5% in the US, probably around 20-25 maximum all around the world,
I think
and
so.
I think 75% of that is the marketplaces. It's Amazon, it's Shopee, it's
Yeah.
Lazada,
Yeah.
right? So they are the e-commerce players. They are the dominant e-commerce players, right? And yeah, I mean, it was a good bet, right? It was a good try for Shopify. It was a good bet, try your thing and see if that works. I mean, it's not a bad business. There's still like a lot of people who love to use Shopify and will love to buy stuff on Shopify stores, but it's never going to be as big as the other guys. And now they are not big enough to actually do AI, which is bad for them.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this is not a Shopify podcast tonight, but like the other thing they didn't do is they didn't build a marketplace, did they?
They tried. Everybody who have e-commerce offering, I mean, build your own e-commerce store offering, they have all tried to build a marketplace and they all failed. All of them.
Yeah.
Every
Just hard,
instances,
at least in the United States.
every instances that I've seen have failed. Like, I don't know why. I really don't know why, because it looks like they have the supply, right? And they have all the products, and they can put marketing into that. They can sell the product for their clients, and everybody's happy. But yeah, they all failed. So I don't know. Maybe it's a marketing problem. But also like when you think about the Amazon business, like it's not only e-commerce. They have all. I mean, it's not only the marketplace, the website. It's all the logistic that comes with
Yeah.
it. That is next level, right? And this is also another part that Shopify has never built, right? You
Right.
rely on third
Shopify
party.
doesn't have its own planes and own airports,
Yeah,
and Amazon
exactly.
does.
Amazon, they have planes and
So
airports. So when you reach this level, right?
it's hard to compete with the guy that has his own airport.
Exactly, right? But also it's because they constantly invested into building all of this infrastructure layer for e-commerce, right?
Right.
And I'm sure
Right.
actually a lot of the Shopify clients they actually use Amazon FBA because this infrastructure is open to everyone. You don't need to sell on the Amazon marketplace to use the logistic of Amazon. They have this offering called Amazon FBA where you can enjoy the logistics part without selling on Amazon. And I'm sure a lot of Shopify guys actually use Amazon FBA,
That's funny.
which is once again a proof that if you are just the software layer on top of the infrastructure, it's a good business, it's great, but it's much better to own the infrastructure as well. That's what Meta understood really, really well. They build their own data centers, even if they don't have a cloud offering, right? They are the only guys who have their own data centers globally, but don't have a cloud offering, right? So, but they do have their data centers, and that's something that Shopify never did. I would say that's because they were too small to actually justify the investment.
Yeah, they never made the tipping point of like we need our own stuff, but now if they had it, they'd be way better off, I think.
I think it would be insane if Shopify had data centers and they could. So that's why like we talk about Shopify because that's really similar to the Modal use case, right? But if tomorrow a software company like this that provides easy access to the infrastructure, if they start building their own data centers, that's a really different story, right? That's a completely different story.
Completely.
Now they can win on both sides, right? The software can be great and the infrastructure can be great. And plus if you acquire them, Now you also acquire all the infrastructure side of things, right? Like imagine if Shopify had built just their own logistics, right? And they had free airport and planes and warehouses all over America. Maybe that would have made sense for Amazon to acquire them, right? And then to make it something much, much larger. But because they never
Yeah,
did,
I'm actually shocked. I'm actually shocked that Shopify was never purchased by anybody.
yeah, yeah.
I just find that shocking, actually.
They are a good software. They are a good software, and unfortunately, that's a small business. I mean, that's all respect to a company that's worth like 100 billion, right?
But in relative terms, it's tiny.
It's tiny
In
compared
relative terms, it's tiny.
to Amazon and all of the other guys. Like they were like actually, this is another very good example. Like of is the model itself are going to make them money actually, right? I think
Yeah.
maybe 15 years ago they said maybe the software itself, the Shopify software, is going to be the layer of e-commerce that's going to make the most money. And that bet was wrong. Like the bet that made the most money was actually the infrastructure, because Amazon has been able to then do AWS, right? Based on their own infrastructure, which Shopify has never done. They don't have Shopify Cloud because they don't have their own data centers.
So I think every time we talk about Shopify, I do the same little bit of research. And let's end on this for now. It's and I want to get to Dell just before we finish the show.
Yep.
Amazon makes, not spends, sorry. Amazon gets paid $68.6 billion in 2025 for people to place ads on their marketplace platform.
This is how many times the revenue of Shopify? Check.
6
times the revenue of Shopify for like.
So that's why I did this. It's a little bit less. It's like 5.7, but Shopify's revenue is approximately $12 billion all in. So whatever 68 divided by 12 is, it's 5, 6. It's a little bit less than 6. So it's like 5.75, right?
But one other piece of information. So first of all, this is insane, right? Like that's like a side business of Amazon that makes 6 times the revenue. So that's insane. But also part of that story is that like 70% of Shopify's revenue is actually Shopify payments. So it's actually the fintech part of Shopify. So now we are not even talking about the infrastructure, not the logistics, not even the e-commerce. We're talking about payments, right? So it's so far away from this idea that e-commerce is going to be much larger part of retail. Now we're actually making money with payments, right? At payments, what are we talking about?
So like, does that make Shopify a payments company?
It's much more a fintech than an e-commerce company, right? So it's crazy when you look at the Shopify use case. It's so crazy to me, right? Like everything that is going on, and I think this is the worst case scenario of what can happen if you don't build infrastructure at some point. I mean, once again.
But what does that mean? Does that mean that every company from now on is going to have to build their own infrastructure? Like that would be a weird way, because that was the whole point of the AWS business, right? It's like you don't need to build your own infrastructure; we'll build it for you, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is the difference between a $100 billion company and a $2 trillion company. Like
yeah, fair enough.
If you don't build the infrastructure and you're happy to be valued a few $1 billion, great for you, right? That's still a great outcome, right? Like I'm not saying that it's bad at all, right? I'm saying that it's absolutely amazing. But if you really want to play with the big dogs and you want to be like at the next level, infrastructure is a must. The only one that, I mean, I was about to say the only one who would get away with that is Apple, but that's not true, because the supply chain of Apple and the logistics is next level as well, right? They have infrastructure in a completely different way.
So I want to talk about Dell, because you've just segued really nicely into infrastructure. Dell was, again, a company. I just want to go back and do this right, because for those people that don't know, Dell was started at, like, I think the University of Texas at Austin. Michael Dell was started to build like custom-made computers in his dorm room, and started selling them, and then turned it into a gigantic business, Dell Computer. They did multiple configurations and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But at some point that became a commodity business. And then they started acquiring other businesses. Like I think they own EMC, and they acquired a whole bunch of other peripheral businesses, and they basically turned themselves into a services company. Mm-hmm. Okay, but listen to this. because this is where infrastructure, and this is where the point you're making actually is super interesting. Here we go. Dell is apparently trying to reposition itself from an AI server vendor to an enterprise AI factory integrator. Integration is one of the things, when I say like a service provider, this is one of the things that IBM started to do years ago. They make most of their money from system integration. So what does that mean? Compute, storage, all the things that goes along with this. And the idea here is that enterprises want to have enough compute power to run AI, but they don't have the capacity to understand like how to actually do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. And this is what you were just talking about, the infrastructure layer. They want to have as much AI as possible, but they don't have enough of their own data centers to actually run this stuff. They don't have the execution layer that turns their AI ambition into like real production systems. And here's the thing. And I mentioned this during the intro, like I haven't thought about Dell in a while. And frankly, we haven't even mentioned Dell on this show ever, I think.
True.
Dell has more than 5,000 customers that are already deploying the Dell AI factory, up from 4,000 at fiscal year 2026 year end. And I don't know when their fiscal year ends, but maybe it was in March of this year.
Okay.
But here's the thing. They're pushing this in two separate directions at the same time. Rack scale data center systems for large AI clusters and desk side local agentic AI systems for regulated or cost sensitive enterprises that want data to stay inside their environment. They actually have a product that's called desk side agentic AI, powered by Dell workstations and NVIDIA NemoClaw. It's just super interesting that it's so incestuous that even when Dell joins the party, they still join the party with like NVIDIA and everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, can I play in this game? And they're like, yeah, but you got to play with all the same people.
But this is exactly what.
But can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me give a little bit more information because I think this is really important.
Right.
You know, I did say during the intro that it was on fire. Mm-hmm. Dell exited fiscal year 26 with $64.1 billion of AI orders, 25.2 billion of AI shipments, and $43 billion of backlog. Whoa. Okay. It booked in quarter four fiscal 26, which must be over, right? It booked $34.1 billion of AI orders, shipped $9.5 billion of AI servers, and generated $9 billion of revenue. And they say that their fiscal year 27 AI server revenue is going to be double fiscal year 26 at about $50 billion. So this is not, again, this is one of Dell's biggest businesses now.
This is insane. This is insane when you think about it.
I just want to throw that at you. I know you had a lot to say, but I wanted to get through the facts so that just we could put all this stuff into context, because I don't think anybody knew that. I know I didn't.
For sure.
Before I started doing work on this.
It's surprising, but in a way not surprising, right? It just means that there is a lot of money to be made in AI that is not the model itself, right? What did you say? $40 billion, right? That Anthropic.
$45 billion $43 billion of backlog, $25 billion of shipments, like money that actually came in and products went out the door.
So this is like basically Anthropic entire annualized revenue, right? And they are just making the same amount of money using servers and using services around AI, right? And so I think that to your point that you're asking into every episode, but that's very valid. Like, who is going to be making the most money in AI? That's absolutely not clear. But it's the model themselves, right? That now this Dell use case is actually showing us that there is a lot of money to be made another way. Right?
That's the point. And that's why I wanted to talk about this. Sorry, go ahead.
And they figured it out, and then plus, like as you mentioned, that they're doing a lot of different things, right? Like servers and services and like ton of different stuff. So it looks like they are really putting their hands into a lot of different options, a lot of different products, which is good when you don't know what's going to work, right? Because then you're just trying, you're testing, you're building processes, building teams, and so if one business becomes massive in 5 years, you are ready. Like you can be the biggest one, you can be the first, right? So So yeah, no, it's super smart, and I didn't think it would work that well. I'm very surprised by how huge the numbers are.
Yeah, and again, I've been out of the enterprise business for a long time, right? But I think sort of towards the end of my tenure inside of Goldman Sachs or UBS or even Citigroup, they were buying the preponderance of the machines they were buying were actually Dell computers because they were kind of the last company standing. And
Okay.
once they transformed their business from a pure like PC selling like, beige box business to saying, now we're going to sell you the storage and all the other services around it. And once they became a systems integrator, now at some level they've got really good relationships actually internally with a lot of these big enterprises. And when the technology changes or when the technology landscape changes, and now AI is a big thing, Dell's like, we have a server you can use for AI. As a matter of fact, we can actually help you get ready on your data side as well, because
Yeah.
we've already been working with you on all this stuff. And data readiness is going to have to be super important, right? And also governance. They can think, we work with 5,000 companies on this. We must have an understanding about what best practices are for governance. And also, like, they've been deploying computers and services inside of like complex environments for probably a couple of decades now.
Hmm.
So this is just another deployment of another complex not piece of software, but like software infrastructure.
Yes, yes,
And maybe
yes.
they're just trusted by some of these big companies. It would be interesting, right, Martin? Because
Hmm.
they never were a part of, the Anthropic deployment company or the OpenAI deployment company. But maybe Dell is actually a window into what's actually happening for big enterprises in the AI space. And just most people don't know that.
But you said something super interesting during the intro of this topic. Company want to keep their data private. They don't want to send their
Yeah.
data to Anthropic and to OpenAI. And
No,
this is
no.
exactly what Yanko told us last week. This is exactly what he said to us. He was like, his entire company is actually helping people, big companies, implement AI because a lot of them do not want to send their data to Anthropic or OpenAI. So, which
Yeah.
means they are implementing open source models, they are building models, they are fine tuning models, they are implementing AI a completely different way than you and I, or that most of the people who are implementing AI as of today. And this is a huge threat to the AI model provider. I mean, to Anthropic and OpenAI. If tomorrow, I mean, like, look, we have the case, right? Like our insurance clients, they don't want to use chat GPT. I mean, it's not they don't want to
No.
use, it's like it's banned, right? None of the employee can use this solution, right? And it's real. Companies just don't want to share their data. They much prefer, I mean, obviously not all of them, but a big portion of companies don't want to use OpenAI or Anthropic, regardless of how they are structured, just because they don't want to share their data with anyone, right? So they prefer to pay an offer that will help them set up their own AI by themselves on their servers, and then there is no data that goes out of their own environment. And as
Yeah.
you rightly said, they already have a relationship, they already have the experience, they already know very well how to do that. Let me help you do this new thing, right? Like, let me help you build your own AI and help you not send any data to anyone. And Vive already made like over $40 billion doing that. This is insane to me, because it means that they are not using Anthropic, they are not using OpenAI, they are using the Chinese models or their own models, which I don't think that's the case. So they use the Chinese models that they fine tune and that they install locally. So which means the usage of open source models may be way higher than what we think, actually. Way higher.
I do think the more we talk about this, the more we
Mm-hmm.
do analysis on this, I agree with you, the
Yeah.
more risk I think there is in these big model companies. They were the kind of the shining light at the beginning because they were the only ones that were
Yeah.
doing this. But now that there are like services getting built around it, whether it's the code
Yes.
completion or like the agentic coding,
Yeah.
the back-end infrastructure, all the other things that like are ecosystem peripheral around it, I think are way more likely to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And again, part of it is cost related. It is well known what the costs are of just like building servers and building
Exactly.
data centers.
You're right.
It's really straightforward, but it's not well known of like what it's going to take to continue to iterate and compete against what seems to be like an insane money arms race on the model side.
You're,
It's almost like they're gonna kill each other at some point. Yeah.
and in a way, like, look, if I'm a CFO, okay, or like a very large company, do I want to put money into Anthropic API, which is probably going to 10x in the next 6 months, or maybe or not, or yes, like I have so much uncertainty, right? There's so much things moving, so much things that are just unpredictable, which makes planning and budgeting so much harder. On the other side, I buy servers, I buy my own hardwares, I pay Dell to implement the Chinese models for me, and that's a fixed cost. That's just one time. It's huge, but it's just one time, and then I can run a lot of stuff. And if I need more, I can just buy more servers when I want. I control my entire budget and operation the exact way that I want. It's so much easier, right? It's so much easier to budget this way, like. And that's why I always tell the lens of we can't use the open source models yet because from an individual point of view it's too expensive and it makes no sense. But when you're a very large enterprise, you have the capex, you have the capacity to buy your own chips and build your own little server farm. Like a lot of them actually do it already, right? And so it's not that difficult. It's not that much of an extra cost. But then it makes everything so much more predictable. They know exactly what they can do. They know exactly how many tokens they can generate a month, which is going to help X number of engineers to do their work. And then everything can be budgetized in such an easier way, right? And plus all the data privacy that we spoke about. So that's two, to me, huge advantages.
Do you think at some level there's a parallel between on-prem and off-prem for cloud, where like when cloud first came, everyone's like, we're moving everything to the cloud, it's going to go outside, and then they're like, whoa, wait a second,
maybe not.
We need to have more control over our data. This is the conversation we had with Idan Salzberg and also with the guy named David Hennemeyer Hansen, who was like, wait a second, I can buy my own machines. I can buy my own chips. I can buy my own racks. I can run my own internal cloud, and then it's completely secure. And it costs me way less because if I need to add a machine, I just add a machine. I don't have to have a markup on it that AWS is charging me. And that guy wrote an entire treatise on, I'm moving everything back inside because I did the math on it. It was just way cheaper. It saves I think he said it saves his company 37 signals or 38. I can't remember what it's called. $4 to $6 million a year.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Though. Not surprised.
So what's the point, right? And I think the AI stuff, the model AI stuff, is probably going to be the same thing. You're right. If I can get a cheaper model and run it all internally, because I can then buy my own servers, buy my own chips, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's better for me to do internal, particularly if I'm worried about data leakage.
Just because now you fix two problems at once, basically, right? Like you kill two birds with the same stone, Michael. Right? So no, this is like really I think actually now my feeling is this usage, right? Like this use case, people building their own servers. Companies building their own servers to implement their own AI may actually be way bigger than we think already, right? I thought it was small because it was expensive and maybe hard to start. But now I'm starting to change my view that it's actually maybe much, much, much larger than we think. And we may already be at the point where it's possible to actually run AI by yourself. And if that's the case, then it's really dangerous for Anthropic and OpenAI because they can't compete there. Like they can't. The only way is to open source their model and to let you install them by yourself. But
didn't Kiwi do that today?
Kiwi? I don't know.
Yeah, didn't they open source their model today?
Okay, I don't know. I didn't see.
There was some announcement today where like one of the Chinese model providers was like, okay, here's the way we built this thing. You're on your own. Like you can just take it.
But like
anyway,
maybe this is going to be the model. We always talk about how we are going to use AI in the next couple of years. It could be open source plus API for hosted solution, right? Like you can install it on your own if you want, or if you want us to host it for you, then you pay either for the API or for the subscription. Like the exact way that WordPress works, for example, this is exactly this model. And also a lot of SaaS, a lot of very, very large SaaS are actually operating in this model as well, right? So that may be the model, and maybe we are actually already here. Maybe we are actually already here when I see this type of numbers for Dell.
Exactly. Martin, do we have any stuff in the chat before we wind up today's show?
Not yet. But if anyone wants to ask us any question about what we spoke about, we had a lot of people on the show with us today, Michael. So really, really cool.
We did.
Yep. So if anyone has any question, let us know. It would be super interesting to hear your thought as well. What's your opinion? Like, what do you think about about Dell, about Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic? Would be super interesting to discuss that with everybody.
Okay, let's leave this here if that's okay with you. Thank you to everybody who was with us today. Thanks for watching AGTP Daily. I really appreciate you joining us. Yeah, we did have a bunch of people watching in real time today, which was awesome. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching this after it gets published on today's video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out if you subscribe. Follow us on all of our socials, on X, on Instagram, and LinkedIn. And definitely leave us a chat. Ask us questions. We try, both Martin and I try over time to respond to all of the stuff that we see there.
Yep.
As always, we will be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you to Martin Runford for everything that he does. My name is Michael Waitz. Bye for now.
See you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Sorry, my math is difficult, but for everybody's watching, tomorrow we are going to, like, we do this show daily, Michael, right? At 11 a.m. Eastern time, Monday to Friday.
Right.
So if you have any question, if you want to come on the show tomorrow, if you want us to discuss anything that's important to you, any question that you have regarding tech, AI, and all the developments that are going on, we will see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Awesome.